If you've been thinking about getting serious with your money, like actually serious, now's the time. The Motley Fool is offering new members 50% off their iconic stock recommendation service, Stock Advisor. This is the same service that's crushed the market with recommendations that have returned 1,057% since inception, compared to the S&P 500's 180% over that same period. This isn't guesswork. The Motley Fool has a track record of finding companies before they become household names. So if you want to invest smarter and you like saving money while doing it, go to Fool.com/listen to claim your 50% off discount off a 1-year term of Stock Advisor. Again, that's Fool.com/listen. Returns of 1,057% are from the Motley Fool's product Stock Advisor and measured against S&P 500 returns of 180% as of July 10th, 2025. Past performance is not an indicator of future results. All investing involves a risk of loss. Individual investment results may vary.
Hey, this is Jason Kleberg from the Force 5 podcast, a show that forces a guest to come up with a movie-themed top 5 list topic, and then we reveal our picks on air. Top 5 heist films, top 5 tearjerkers, top 5 movie dogs. Every show you'll be asking yourself, what would be on my list? Guests include directors, screenwriters, actors, podcasters, musicians, authors, and even a professional wrestler. Subscribe to the Force 5 podcast, and you won't just be a listener, you'll be a list nerd. The Force 5 podcast, available wherever you're listening now.
We're in Way Media.
Welcome back to Midnight Viewing, and potentially the weirdest fucking episode we've ever done. There's no way to justify this episode, HP. It is neither horror nor anthology. It isn't genre related in any way. This is the whitest of white movies, as you pointed out just before we started recording. I don't know that we can come up with anything whiter. I suppose we're recording it to tie in with the upcoming television series, the new adaptation of it being done by Tina Fey, and we're very much looking forward to that. But really, there is no reason at all to be watching the 4 seasons.
I feel like all of this work that we've done, podcasting, all these episodes we've done together in different series, it's all led up to this point. So I'm excited.
This is the culmination, is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. It's a culmination of our friendship, Father. This is really it.
Oh,
You know?
God. What he said. All right, here we go. This is the 4 seasons, everybody.
Here's to us. Here's to apple trees. To cheese.
Here's to cheese.
To wine and bread and laughter and life itself.
Friendship can be happiness and laughter. Jealousy and envy.
She's wonderful. Can't even enjoy hating her. Who the hell needs that?
Anger and disappointment.
I fall in love with this man, and all of a sudden, in addition to him, I've got 4 constant companions.
It all depends on the season.
We owe the depth, breadth, and height of this friendship to the world's most ancient emotions. Fear and panic.
Universal Pictures presents Alan Alda and Carol Burnett in a story of friendships that grow and blossom, of friendships that change, like the 4 seasons.
You could make me fall in love with you pretty easily. You mean it could get worse?
I don't believe it. They're at it again. Again. They never stop. Those 2 are gonna kill themselves.
Why don't you let your anger out once in a while?
I'm not paying for this. This is your expense. These people are vicious. Vicious and ill.
Try this.
You know how that voice carries?
How come everyone thinks I'm paranoid?
He's the Muhammad Ali of mental illness.
You boys go pull on your anchor for a while. We'll be back here.
More. Hold it.
Is this the fun part? Are we having fun yet?
Through winter, spring, summer,
Oh my God, the boat's moving!
You go ahead, folks. I'll catch up.
and fall.
I wonder what other people do on their vacations.
Somehow, they survive it all. Alan Alda, Carol Burnett, Len Cariou, Sandy Dennis, Rita Moreno, Bess Armstrong, and Jack Weston. Friendship is like the seasons. Warm, cold, constant, changing, beautiful. The Four Seasons, written and directed by Alan Alda.
The Four Seasons, released on April the 30th in 1981. That makes us how old?
Yikes. That's pretty old. Geez.
No, I'm saying
Almost-
when the movie came out, my friend.
How old were we? We were 8 years old.
Yeah, we were 8 years old, newly 8 years old. It actually premiered. It premiered on the 30th, but it didn't get released until the 22nd. The movie is written and directed by Alan Alda, starring Alan Alda, Carol Burnett, Len Cariou, Sandy Dennis, Rita Moreno, Jack Weston, and Bess Armstrong. That's everybody. I'd like to point out that the cinematographer on the film is Victor J. Kemper, who shot the movies Friends of Eddie Coyle and Dog Day Afternoon and Pee-wee's Big Adventure and this. HP, what was your first experience with this movie? Why are we talking about it?
I don't know that I ever actually. This was on cable pretty heavily at that time. That was probably right around the time that we first got cable TV, 80, 81. And I was far too young to care about the middle-age crises and happy hijinks of this group of group of friends. So I'm sure that I saw the trailer for it play endlessly at that time, but to be fair, I don't think I actually really saw the movie itself until you and I had some sort of conversation, maybe in the last year, where you might have made a joke about the Four Seasons and Alan Alda and the sensitivity of it all. And I had a flashback to the trailer with Carol Burnett, and I watched it, and I'm obsessed with it now.
I watched the movie on a loop as a kid.
Did you really? What did you make of it as an 8-year-old?
I was confused by a lot of it. I was worried that this is what adulthood had in store for me. It seemed like a cautionary tale at best. Just these older white intellectuals with no problems making up problems. And doing it in like the most beautiful natural settings and not noticing the fucking forest for the trees. Now, having said that, as joking as I'm being, although I did actually feel that way, maybe it's from an anthropological standpoint. The movie came out when we were 8, but I didn't see it till it was on cable, which is probably a year or two later. So we're talking maybe 10 or 11 years old. That's when I'm watching this movie over and over again. And I will say, the movie did seem revolutionary in a way, because I wasn't seeing anybody talking about relationships in any meaningful way like this. You certainly weren't getting it on network television. It didn't have the time nor the wherewithal to delve into the sexual politics of people like in their 40s or 40s, I guess. These are just fucking baby boomers, right? And these are basically our parents. So it was interesting. It was like reading your parents' diary in a way. So
kind of. And it's interesting you say that, because it feels, I just had a revelation that this was a precursor to a show like 30 something, which is obviously, by the name, you can tell it's not about 40 something year olds, but that is a show that kind of paved the way for the notion of let's
navel
talk
gazing.
about our feelings.
Navel gazing is entertainment.
But in that sense, I think you're right. I think this was maybe a bit ahead of its time, which the weird irony of that is that this did inspire a TV adaptation in 1984. Did you know that?
Yes.
You did? Which didn't, the only main actor who came back was Jack Weston. We'll talk about his character. I think Alan Alda guest starred in the first episode, but he wasn't really involved. It was mostly a new cast. And unfortunately, I couldn't track down an episode to watch it to see if it was how it stacked up to the movie.
Oh, it was terrible. It was dreadful.
It looked bad, and I can't imagine it went in with the same earnest attitude that the movie had.
Did somebody say earnest? My God. I'm shocked that Jim Varney wasn't in this movie.
However, I did take note that one of the other main characters, one of the main actors in the TV show was Alan Alda, who we can't seem to get away from, Father Malone. He's in everything we review. He's in Crossroads. He's in Taxi. What hasn't the man done? MASH?
Yeah, we're not going to be reviewing that one.
No, not at all. But yeah, no, I think navel gazing is an interesting way of, because really, ultimately, we're going to talk about this movie at length, but there's not a lot of action. This is a very episodic movie about these friends who gather for vacations once a season, but they're really just talking about their friendship. They're talking about how much they love each other, how much they can't stand each other. They're arguing, they're making up, they're kissing, they're whatever. That's basically the movie in a nutshell right there.
Within a year or two, The Big Chill would come out and do exactly what this movie is trying to do in a massively entertaining way.
I'm stunned that I didn't make that same connection, but you're absolutely right. That was another movie about these long friendships. They're looking back on their lives and with some regret and some whatever. Yeah, it's basically the theme of the Four Seasons, but writ large and with a little more panache. And it really hit the cultural zeitgeist in a way that the Four Seasons, it was a success, but I don't think it really hit the bullseye the way that The Big Chill did.
See, The Big Chill was, although the characters are upwardly mobile and mainly successful in their careers, were basically normal people, whereas this is just a bunch of New York intellectuals. This is basically three separate couples, all who think and talk and act like Alan Alda.
Pretty much. Do you want to break down these couples, though?
Let's do it.
Yeah. So we have
couple number one.
This is like the dating game. So the first couple is Jack and Kate. They're played by Alan Alda, and Carol Burnett is his wife in it. He is a lawyer, and she is the editor of Fortune magazine. If you talk about intellectuals, I mean, you can't get more intellectual than that. It's ridiculous. Then we have Danny and Claudia. Danny is played by Jack Weston. Claudia is played by Rita Moreno. She's playing Italian, which I thought...
She's playing Italian?
She is.
Is her character Italian?
She only says it like every other word, basically. He is a dentist, and she is his successful painter wife. She's a painter, although they don't make much of that. That's kind of dropped. Then the third couple is Nick and Annie. It's played by Len Cariou and Sandy Dennis. He is an insurance salesman who likes to brag that he's an estate planner. And she is a housewife who's scattered and not all that interesting as a character. And fortunately, she doesn't really feature too much in this picture. To be honest, I think Sandy Dennis gets real short shrift in this because she's a doormat for Nick. But so those are the three couples that we have going on all these adventures.
So those are three couples. We're going to get 4 seasons. We're going to get 4 separate vacations that they're going to take together. So we can reasonably assume that they do this every year.
I think so. It's at one point
does this movie take place over the span of 1 year? Is this spring, summer, winter, fall for 1 year?
It is, because in certain seasons they make reference to the previous vacation. So yes, it does take place, as far as I can tell, over the course of 1 year in these characters' lives. And as far as their friendship, there's a scene where they talk about how they all met. It's a little unclear, but my sense is 7 years?
7 years. I was shocked watching the movie this time that they said, "Do you remember when we met? You were a client in my thing 7 years ago. I remember the date." And I'm like, wait a minute. These middle-aged people met each other half a decade ago. I thought they were like college friends. I thought they grew up together. The fact that they're as entwined in each other's lives, as late in their lives as they are, gave me so much fucking pause, HP.
But it makes sense because there's such an emphasis on friendship and how much they need each other that I'm not surprised that they would cling to each other that desperately, because like at one point, it almost seems like they need their friendships more than they need their married partners. Like they fall over themselves. They're always kissing and hugging each other. I'm not talking about the husbands and wives. I'm talking about Alan Alda is forever kissing and hugging Len Carey with ebullience and happiness. But you raise a good point, because it's 7 years. It's not as if they could share that much of their life. Let's put it this way. That's a very small percentage of their lives up to that point. If they're all in their 40s, that's not a lot of time spent together. So
HP, you and I have been friends for nearly fucking 40 years. When's the last time I grabbed you in a hug and held you aloft? I can tell you never.
Never. But
and I love you. You know that.
Absolutely. The thing of these characters, they're so white, but they're really sensualists, because everything is the best thing ever. So it starts out in spring, and they're going to a rented cabin in the woods somewhere. And the first night, the husbands make supposed to be a gorgeous Chinese meal for the wives, and the food comes out. I thought, honestly, most of the time they were stoned, because everything is so good. Oh, I love this. And they're bellowing at each other all the time. I love you, Dennis. I love you, Danny, whatever. They're grabbing life by the balls, Father Malone. Every glass of wine is great. Alan Alda's forever making these like pompous toasts to their friendship and all this kind of stuff. So they're sensualists. They love life, basically.
I don't know where to go with that. They certainly are. Okay, I know where to go with it. Over on the Horror Anthology podcast, Projection Booth host Mike White has a particular disdain for cinematic portrayals of drunkenness. They just never get it right. It's always grating to him on a subatomic level, as is forced frivolity is to me. I spent years in the trenches of art house movie theaters. I've heard all the forced laughter you can possibly imagine, and there's no worse forced laughter than the kind found in the Four Seasons. Everything, as you said, nothing is just funny. It's the most hilarious, head-to-back guffawing, slapping you on the back hilarity. We're having fun.
There's a scene where they're floating. This is during summer or spring. They're floating on a lake. They're all lounging. They're eating French bread, which they eat a lot of French bread in this movie. It's a little weird. And they're eating cheese and drinking wine, and they're all just having a great time. And out of nowhere, like I said, Alan Alda's character, Jack, gets up and says, I want to make a toast to friendship, to wine. I love you all. And then he sits back down. And then he gets up and he says, no. I want to create something memorable for this moment because it's so important to me. And then he finishes drinking his wine and he leaps into the lake, fully clothed. This is the funniest thing in the world to everyone else in the canoe. So funny that Len Carrey decides he's going to jump into the lake. So they laugh all over again. Then Jack Weston jumps in the lake. And what do? They start laughing all over again. By the end of it, they're all in the lake. They're all laughing. They're all hugging each other. And they're all it's like that. It's the kind of moment in real life. Someone jumps in the lake. Maybe you laugh a little bit, but then you say, you're a dumbass. Get out of the lake. This goes on for 5 minutes of forced laughter that like, this is the funniest thing that they've done ever. And there's about 5 scenes like that in this whole picture.
Half this movie's runtime is forced laughter.
It's laughter. I really started like, in my mind, I thought I had remembered a scene where they got stoned. Like one of them had some weed on them and they got stoned and they were raiding a kitchen or something. I think I was misremembering that for another movie, maybe Indian Summer, which is also a good picture. But no, they just love life and everything is funny. It's passion. They're so passionate. They're as passionate as white people can get, Father Malone. Which is very passionate, apparently.
And they're going to go do all the white people shit. They're going to go to the Virgin Islands and they're going to do it on a fucking rented sailboat. when they go, is it wintertime? Going up to the cabin. We're going to go skiing, baby. Fall time, we're going to go collegiate. We're going to go play touch football and knock the shit out of each other. Springtime, of course, we're going to just row out into the middle of a lake and we're just going to float there and talk about poetry or something or other.
Yeah. Look, we can't forget, I think you mentioned that this was written and directed by Alan Alda. This is what he knew. This is a page out of his life. So it's not a surprise.
To be fair,
that
Alan Alda is white.
He is. And this is very much like made reference to Robert Altman. Like this is a little bit like a Robert Altman movie because there's a lot of scenes of them having conversations that overlap each other. And that's interesting. But really, the other touchstone I had of this, and I'm not making a direct comparison. I am making a direct comparison, but I'm not suggesting it's inspired by but it's a little like a Woody Allen movie without the sort of some of the charm that maybe Woody Allen would bring to something like this, the quirkiness of it.
The joke.
You're right. This is there at no time during this movie do you forget that Alan Alda wrote it because they all sound like him, right? You said that already. All the characters sound like Alan Alda, including Alan Alda.
He has managed to make the way he talks just different enough in each character's mouths. He's given them all a different kind of tick. And then, of course, the actors are bringing whatever they're bringing to it. But basically, it just sounds like the different personalities of Alan. This is Inside Out, Pixar's Inside Out, Alan Alda.
But having said that, though, one thing I was struck by as I was watching, none of this is to say that the performances are bad. They're actually really good for the most part because he's got good actors. And I have to say that so Carol Burnett has a lot to do because she's Alan Alda's wife in the movie, but whether it's just the times, but she reminded me of just about every female friend of my parents from around that time. Every house we would go over, we would hang out and my parents would have their adult friends. She was exactly like those women that I remember. The same short haircut, the same kind of mousy looks or whatever, and the same sense of humor.
She really the attitude. I'm not going to take that. Give me that ticket. Fuck you, cop. Like that friend.
Yeah, absolutely. So from that perspective, I actually thought it was kind of true to life, despite the fact that she's saying a lot of things that Alan Alda is telling her to say. But it did stylistically and visually, she definitely reminded me of a lot of my parents, the wives of the friends that we would go and hang out at their house.
Over on the Weekly Roundup, just this past one, as a matter of fact, I re-reviewed Bedknobs and Broomsticks from 1971, 10 years earlier than this film, starring Angela Lansbury. Now, in between those two time periods, Angela Lansbury would perform the part of Mrs. Lovett and Sweeney Todd on Broadway. Her co-star and during that run is Len Cariou. In fact, he had just ended his run as Sweeney Todd when he made this movie. HP, for the past 40 years, I have been listening to Len Cariou performing that part on that soundtrack. I own it on vinyl. I own it on cassette tape. I own it on CD. And somehow had forgotten or never really made the connection that that guy singing all those years is this guy in this movie. And was kind of knocked out that it was him.
And I got to tell you, he's very good. There's no villain in this movie because they're all
He's
friends.
The villain in this movie.
He really is because it's his decision to divorce his wife, Annie, sets basically the main driving sort of inciting incident into action. So they get together during the spring and he confides, Len Cariou's character, Nick, confides in Alan Alda's character, Jack, that he's not been happy with his wife for decades. They just celebrate forever. They just had their 21st wedding anniversary, and that's what he says. They're out foraging for firewood, another white guy type thing to do.
Oh my God, and the whitest thing, because Len Cariou or Alan Alda has one of those canvas stacks. That's two sticks, and you hold it open, and you drop wood into it. It's like, oh, I got this at LL Bean.
So he confides it's a really good scene because Len Cariou is a really good actor.
And they have to walk and talk through a fucking forest. Nice job, Alan.
Yeah. But, you have what he has to do is he feels like he finally has to divorce his wife. And Alan Alda, I'm just going to call them by their actors' names because
yes, come on now.
So Alan Alda, being Alan Alda, says, "Why don't you guys try to work it out? You guys can talk it out." But Len Cariou just says, "Look, I've been trying for 20 years. She's not going to change." And to be fair, everything we know about this wife of his, Sandy Dennis, I wouldn't want to be married to her either. She seems boring. She seems dull. Her thing is she takes pictures of sliced vegetables. She's a housewife who doesn't really have a job. And the point that he makes is that she's so stable, she's inert, he says, because she's got no fire. There's no spark. She doesn't excite him. She never excited him. So while we should have sympathy for him that he deserves to be happy, he was lonely for the last 20 years. At the end of the day, the other couples feel betrayed by him divorcing his wife because they're a package deal, right?
Yeah.
These 6 couples, these 3 couples always go on a trip together. And what happens is the following trip, which is summertime, now we get introduced to his new love interest, a much younger woman played by Bess Armstrong, named Ginny.
Did you think that Bess Armstrong was like one of the most popular actresses in the world at this moment? Because she seemed to be in everything right around this time period.
She did seem to be in an awful lot of movies. She was in High Road to China with Tom Selleck after the fact. She was in Barefoot in the Park with Richard, what's his name?
Richard Thomas.
Richard Thomas, yes, thank you. She did seem to be on the come up, but then she kind of vanished. 3D. Just 3D with Dennis Quaid, absolutely. But she's very charming. I think she's a very winning personality as an actress. I wonder myself where she went?
Well, folks younger than us will answer that question immediately and let us know that it was My So-Called Life. She's the mom in that.
Oh, okay. There you go. She sort of went away, and then she was in a movie that actually I really liked a lot called Diamond Men. Have you ever seen it?
I have.
It's a fantastic little, this little mini review. Anyone who's out there, it's got Robert Forster. People know him from Jackie Brown. That was his big comeback role, but she's in it. One of the Wahlbergs, Donnie Wahlberg, is in it, but he's actually pretty good.
Yeah, he's the one who can act, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that was what I saw, the first thing I saw her in forever, because I'm not going to watch, but she's very good in this. She's the younger woman that kind of comes in to replace Annie, Nick's wife. And again, like I said, that sets everything in motion because from that point on, she's now part of the deal with this guy. And everybody sort of, not only do they resent the fact that this guy's divorced his wife, they don't think that's fair, but they were all a little bit jealous of Ginny, of Bess Armstrong, because she's beautiful. She's half their age, for goodness sake. So, like I said, she's gorgeous in this. She's really gorgeous.
And she's sweet. That's the other problem that they're grappling with. They want to hate her more than anything just for what she represents. But as a person, she's actually pretty decent.
Yeah. It would be easy if she was a bubble-headed naif, but she's actually very nice. She's very fair. She tries to be a good person and a good friend to these people. And yeah.
In that regard, I applaud Alan Alda for going that route and making her more complex than just he went and got himself a young dummy. And now they have to deal with a dummy.
Well, he makes the other couples look really bad because they're always making little comments, not even behind her back. And
right to her face. The fucking prickery, man.
Right to her face. And at the same time, the characters take themselves to task. Like, why did we say that? Because I think just about every other person in the cast says or does something really terrible to her through the course of this movie. And almost immediately they feel terrible about it because she is such a nice person, this character, Ginny.
Well, dramatically, construction-wise, it's great because here we've got this character who represents everything that they've lost in their lives. And in some cases, it is spurring jealousy in amongst them. That's the Alan Alda's character thing isn't even so much that like he wants to sleep with young Bess Armstrong. It's that he wants to be Len Cariou. He wants to be living this carefree lifestyle and not part of the unit anymore.
And his wife, Carol Burnett, takes him to task.
She notices it immediately.
Yeah. And there's a scene with them on the boat where she basically says, look, I get it. Your fantasy is to be worshipped by a much younger woman. It's okay, have your fantasy. But he comes, what do you say? He gets upset. And one of the things that she is annoyed by this character is that he won't ever let himself get angry. So they're having this discussion where his ire should be raised. But because he's this buttoned down white guy, he won't let himself get upset and be fiery. And that really frustrates her. But through that scene, she's describing the fact that she's younger and how she notices that Alan Alda's character is sucking his stomach in and he's combing his hair and he's shaving. I swear to you, Father Malone, there's like a tear in Carol Burnett's eye when she's saying this, because she's a little bit sad that she's not the one inspiring all these behavioral changes. I thought that was really kind of marvelous.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I'm going to bag on this movie, but not because of the performances at all, and not because of some of the dramatic scenarios that the movie is able to present. Some of these are tough questions that needed to be asked amongst couples at this time. Everyone has to eventually examine their own relationships and everything. And it may have been revolutionary at the time. At least, like I said, it felt to me it was when I was 10. What the fuck did I know then? But going back now, we get it. We all know this. Like, you all should have figured this shit out before you got married.
But at the same time, I don't know. We're going to continue, like you said, to knock this movie pretty hard. I think it's mostly because of the foibles of the characters. It's the little quirks and the little bits of humor that Alda injects, not always successfully. But I do agree with you that the fact that he's having them ask these questions and look at life from these different perspectives is very commendable, because there weren't a lot of... I told you offline that I watched a Siskel and Ebert review of the Four Seasons from that time, and they both really enjoyed it. So, and they raised the same kinds of points that we are, that it's kind of refreshing, A, to have a movie that is adult in nature and execution, and B, have it delve into some really interesting questions about life and about relationships. I have to tip my cap to Alan Alda for doing that. As kind of stereotypically sensitive and white as it is, I still kind of appreciate it on that level.
He was asking pertinent questions about his generation and using his clout to get a movie made. A movie that couldn't... We always say, oh, that movie couldn't be made now because of some sort of subject matter. But here's a movie you couldn't make now, because no one's going to make a movie about navel-gazing white people traipsing around the fucking globe and put it out theatrically.
But the Netflix thing is interesting, though.
Right. And I think as I said, there's a lot of good here in this movie. And I think there's a lot to be mined out of the good parts of it. And I'm curious to know what those things are. I have nothing but faith in the team that's mounting the television version. It's just that this one sometimes makes me want to stab myself in the skull. Before we go any further, but we're not probably going to talk about her anymore, Sandy Dennis, because she only appears in one season, Springtime, before she is divorced by Len Cariou. She, a decade before this movie, a little more than a decade before this movie, in 1968, starred in one of my favorite movies of all time called Sweet November with Anthony Newley. It was eventually remade with Keanu Reeves and Michael Rosenbaum. That's not a good movie. Go watch the one from 1968. It's fucking heartbreaking, and she is so good in it. The original Manic Pixie Dream Girl. So that's what. Anyway, as far as I just want to throw in my own little mini review there. Go watch Sweet November, everybody.
She has the most thankless. I already said this pretty much, but she has the most thankless part, because her character is, for me, she's one of the most unlikable out of all of them, because there's just nothing. And this is why Len Cariou wanted to divorce her in the first place. She's just kind of not a very exciting person, not a very interesting person. We do see her a little bit in Fall.
It's true.
Because in Fall, we're skipping all over the place, but in Fall, these same group of couples, they go to visit, well, first they visit their daughters at college. I don't know what college, but when they get there, I think at this point, Ginny I think she's actually married to Len Cariou now, but Sandy Dennis's character is there also. It's parents' weekend at this college. So there's a little bit of an interesting confrontation between the two of them. And then you find out that the other women, the other wives, have not been keeping up contact with her just because she's kind of not
part of the group now.
She's not part of the group anymore. And it's an interesting scene because she basically calls them out and says, look, I feel like you guys have left me out to dry. Like I'm history now. And they all feel bad about that. And you find out a little bit more about what she's been up. It's really sad because the thing everybody's worried about most is when they get this divorce, they're not worried about him because he's like a womanizer and they don't really care much about that part of it. But she's the one who will be more affected by the divorce. It's not a divorce that she wanted or asked for. So she's left to pick up the pieces of her life. And you just by her talking, you find out like she has a pet snake for some reason because just is sort of lost in life and she's trying to figure herself out again. She's making a plan to go to Czechoslovakia because she's never wanted to go to Czechoslovakia, which is weird, but I guess anybody who's been confronted with a life change dramatic like this, I guess it makes you do funny things. But it is a thankless part. And I suppose she does the best with what she could with it, but it doesn't really engender much interest from me anyway.
I do feel bad for her, but I also know that she spent 3 years photographing vegetables with no plan on doing anything with it.
Yeah. So,
and had finally come up with the idea of pairing the vegetables.
And we're supposed to not like Len Cariou because we do find out because when he's had this conversation
fucking all around all the time. When Alan Alda's like, you got somebody in the wings, don't you? He's like, no, I swear I don't have anyone in the wings. And I'm just like, yeah, okay, sure, pal.
But then you find out that Danny, the dentist, found out because the guy was under sedation at his dentist office. So he told him these things while he was under the influence of the laughing gas, which is kind of funny. But
I would like to have seen that scene, actually.
Yeah. And Jack Weston is really the comic relief of this whole picture, I think, because he's sort of the bumbler. He's this sort of we've all seen Jack Weston. Of course, he was in Wait Until Dark, which we covered in Cable Box Theater. It was Cable Box Theater, was it not?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. He is like I said, he's a dentist, but his character quirk is that he's a hypochondriac he's the oldest one of the bunch. And as he gets older, he feels his mortality more keenly. So he's always talking about he doesn't want to do this. He's afraid. He gets sunburned and he's complaining and all this kind of stuff. And he's also the one, and I think every friend group maybe has someone like this, who's endlessly keeping track of how much everyone owes in terms of, okay, we're going out to dinner. You owe me $13. You owe me $25. You owe me whatever. And they always give him a hard time because of that role that he's imposed on himself.
That would be annoying if they were friends for life. The fact now that they've only been friends for 7 years and these aren't like, I guess they're wealthy enough and all, but shelling out a lot of fucking money on these trips, man.
And they're fucking up a lot of stuff too. They're breaking a lot of things on their trips.
They destroy the front of that boat.
Yeah, they destroy the boat because the anchor gets stuck. And Len Cariou fancies himself a sailor and he tries to back the boat out, but it snaps the railing off the front of it. And then they get beached on a sandbar and they have to sit there with the boat tilted at a weird angle.
Then they shot all in that boat, the Sandivore. Yeah, the 49-foot yawl from the Ufa Fox collection. It was created in 1952.
Those are some good notes you got there, Father Malone.
I go deep when it comes to nautical.
But in every single vacation destination, I think maybe summer might be the one exception. I don't remember what they did in summertime to destroy whatever they've got going on.
That was summertime.
Oh, that was summertime. Oh, that's right. That the boat was summer. I'm thinking of autumn. I'm thinking of fall. Sorry.
Well, they demolished my will to live by talking to their daughters at their uptight Wesleyan stand-in universities.
Both daughters, by the way, were Alan Alda's actual daughters.
Yep.
But they're not playing sisters. They're actually childhood friends. One of them is Alan Alda's daughter in the movie. The other one is Len Cariou's daughter, who she's depressed because of the divorce. And nobody much likes her anymore. She's morose. She talks about the only friend she had tried to commit suicide, and she's miserable.
And she's just like her Dad. Like this not so veiled threat. I'm getting ready to do myself in here, Pops. This is where it becomes clear that Len Cariou is actually the villain of the piece. At least that Alan Alda has decided he is now, because his decision has not only fractured their friend group, but he's decimated his daughter's future potentially.
True, but as the seasons progress,
and by the way, his reaction to her being morose, whether or not she's being overly dramatic, she's clearly depressed. Look at the way she's dressed, for God's sake. His response is to do that, I know you got a smile in there. Let me see that smile. Like, I wanted to stab him so badly. I wanted to put him in a chair, cut his throat, drop him down, and cook him into a pie.
Yeah, he's not likable. But to be fair, though, what I was going to say was, like, it's all of the ire isn't exclusively directed at Len Cariou, because as the seasons progress, they all get annoyed at everybody else, particularly this guy Danny, Jack Weston's character, because his obsession with all of these negative, like death and his ailments, and the fact that he has to be the bean counter for every aspect of their vacation grates on them. And then Alan Alda accuses him of being paranoid, which he is, but that just makes him more paranoid, because now he thinks that everybody thinks he's paranoid. So it's a mystery to me how someone like him gets married to somebody like Rita Moreno, which was a little odd, because look, Rita Moreno was 50 years old when she made this, but she could pass for someone 15 years younger.
Oh, easily. I had no idea she was
great.
that old. Yeah, she looks fantastic.
And
she's Italian.
Which she's not. We all know that she's actually Puerto Rican. That grated on me too, because she's not. But because one of her character traits is that she says things without thinking about them, like hurtful things. She will say something and then someone will be very hurt by it. And then when people say, well, why did you say that to her? Her defense is, well, I'm Italian, which eventually leads to Jack Weston doing a classic bellowing scene where they're in a hotel room and he opens up the window and says, my wife's Italian. Do you hear that? Now you don't have to ever say that you're Italian again. And he storms off. It's kind of her defining character trait, but her performance, despite that, is actually really soulful in a lot of ways. So there's a moment where during the summer vignette, let's call it, where Len Cariou and Bess Armstrong have really been making things awkward. First of all, they're fucking all night, keeping everybody awake. Loudly.
By the way, about that, HP, if I'd known you for any amount of time and you did that, the next day you and I would have words.
It was I didn't understand it, because they're all kind of tiptoeing around it, but
making little tittery jokes about it. It's like, hey, can you two not fuck so loud? We're all tense here, right?
Pretty much. But so they're fucking all the time. At one point, they go skinny dipping in plain view of everybody. And Len Cariou is giving her a little gift every day of the vacation, which is driving most of them nuts. But they have this conversation where Rita Moreno's character actually is the only one to say, you know what? I'd kind of like to be them. I'm kind of jealous of what they have. She's the only one who says, because they've all been married for 20 years at this point. They've all
and falling in love is awesome. So yeah, she gets it.
Yeah, well, she's recognizing the fact that after you've been married to someone for 10, 15, 20 years, some of the passion, if not a lot of the passion, has probably gone out. It's inevitable. You've been waking up next to this person for 20 years. So for her to say, I kind of like to have what they're having, it was kind of like a nice, wistful moment of lucidity from the character.
I agree. That's one of my favorite moments. It's not one of my favorite moments of any movie ever. Vivaldi.
Well, that's the big hook of this movie, right? The soundtrack.
Isn't it though? I can't stand Antonio Vivaldi. It's like the Muzak of classical music. This is like the most accessible, boring tunes ever. It's all fucking strings and all horns, man. I cannot stand it.
Well, I agree with you to a point, but what makes it worse in this case is that the transition to every new season is depicted by, or it's introduced by a montage. So if it's summer, It's a lot of images of flowers, sunshine, lakes and whatever, but loudly soundtracked by the Vivaldi piece that matches that season. But it happens if this were a play, like a theatrical play, you would understand it because they need that time to strike the set, change costumes, get ready. But this to me is like time wasted. I get it. We transitioned into winter. You don't have to show frozen leaves or ice or icicles hanging off of a snowy roof. That grated on me more than the music in isolation.
HP, do you remember Christopher Guest's film, The Big Picture?
Yes, in the broad strokes, but it's been many years since
So before Waiting for Guffman and before the improv everything, he wrote and directed a movie about Kevin Bacon stars as a young film school student who has graduated and made his first short film, and he's attracted studio interest and he's trying to get a movie made. It's all about the foibles of trying to get that movie made and all the perversions of his original intention. And he replaces his friends on the crew and it becomes a movie about this, that, and the other. It's really, really a great film. And I encourage everyone to see it, if only because Jennifer Jason Leigh is so fucking adorable at the end. But the movie he's trying to make seems to me to be The Four Seasons. If you watch the movie, you'll see what I mean. It's about 3 middle-aged people in a snowy cabin working out their relationships, and it's 2 guys and a girl, so they've had interesting couplings over the years, and like it's the four seasons. And thank God the studio was trying to turn that into Abe and the Babe, where Abe Lincoln and Babe Ruth team up.
I don't remember that's awesome. Yeah, I don't know. The thing of it is, I've watched this movie probably about 3 or 4 times over this past weekend, kind of once to just take notes and a few times just to reacquaint myself with the rhythms of it and everything. And the weird thing is, the more I watch it, the more I kind of dig it. It's like a hangout movie to me now. Like they're very low stakes. I mean, beyond the fact that we're talking divorce and that's a terrible thing, but it's a low stakes movie. The actors are good enough that they can sell the fact that they're friends with each other. It's over the top. There's a lot of shrieky laughter and over-the-top affection for each other and whatnot. But I don't know. The funny thing happened on the way to this podcast is I was a little charmed by it, Father Malone.
That's interesting. I was not. The exact opposite happened. Everything I thought I liked about the movie turned out to be a grating nightmare. And I'm now able to appreciate basically the performances. I appreciate the movie as a kind of retro time capsule of 1981 and what white people were up to. And I will say this, what I did notice this time around is that as kind of elitist intelligentsia literati, as much of that group as were being shown, what I noticed is everything that they were like eating and kind of obsessed with would eventually settle in with the rest of America. So yeah, they're making this Chinese dish at the beginning. And yes, they are going crazy for it. I agree. Oh, this is the greatest thing ever. But you got to remember, in 1981, like, where were you getting anything other than regular old American food, other than these people who are these effete snobs who you wouldn't want to piss on if they were on fire? But at least they were ahead of the curve culturally when it comes to mixing and mingling and fusion.
They're so white that when Jack Weston is cooking this meal, this Chinese meal, his apron is a reproduction of the New York Times living section. It's like a recipe printed
They're
on the
all
front.
wearing the 3 men in the kitchen. They all have the individual aprons. What's up?
But if you think about it, though, that's also something that's a little enlightened about it, is the men are in the kitchen cooking this Epicurean delight while the women are doing what would maybe traditionally at that point been a man's thing, which is they're all chewing the fat, talking about life or whatever, while the men are slaving away in the kitchen. But at the same time, they are effete snobs, to your point. So I would expect nothing less. And in fact, when they then transition to this idyllic boat scene before they all jump into the lake, what are they talking about? The thing we're introduced them talking about, what should we have for our next meal? Oh, let's make an Indian meal. Oh no, how about something Asian? No. I have it. Chicken Florentine they're so into the food. And I think you're right. I think this was sort of presaging that sort of idea of the gourmet, not really a fad, but gourmet food became a big deal in America. It kind of made its way from the elitist sort of New York dilettantes and eventually became like the cookbooks were a big deal at the time. You don't really see cookbooks anymore, but cookbooks were like bestsellers in the 80s, right? Because everyone wanted to have a unique gourmet experience. Well, this was kind of an early look at that. Kind of cool.
4 years after this, Judd Nelson would go, sushi? When confronted with a bento box of sushi that Molly Ringwald is eating. That is how foreign the idea of sushi was. He didn't even know what it was.
You can get sushi at the mall now.
Yeah.
And in the Breakfast Club, it was considered like, oh my God, she's so upper crust. She brought a sushi dish to her detention.
Also, can you imagine anything more disgusting? Can I eat? I don't know. Give it a try. Are you kidding me? That's all I want to eat, motherfucker.
So I guess what I'm kind of getting at is there's this movie isn't for everyone. That much is clear. But
who is this movie for, HB? Nostalgia people like us?
Well, I don't know, because I think anyone who might have been a contemporary of Alan Alda and the people in this movie, either dead or they're just old. I don't think it's for them because they've aged past where this is revolutionary. It's for somebody because Tina Fey saw enough in this that she decided to make a Netflix miniseries based off of this idea. So it's for somebody. It didn't just vanish into thin air. So Tina Fey saw it and thought it was worth it.
So that just makes me think Tina Fey saw this as a youth and then remembered it later and went, I think we could do better than that.
So I assume you watched the trailer for it.
I have not.
You have not? Okay. Well, then I won't. I will say nothing more. But yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm
this
not going to
fucking podcast for that reason.
Well, okay. I just didn't want to poison your thinking. I'm always going to be optimistic because I think she's a really good writer. And Steve Carell, the cast looks great, right? Steve Carell, Coleman Domingo is in it. Is that his name?
Yeah, Will Forte.
And Will Forte, which is totally bonkers as far as I'm concerned, because he's a weird guy. At least that's who he portrayed on SNL always. But I first of all, this is going to be a mini series. Like, it was enough that all 4 seasons were covered in a 90-minute movie, and that was enough. I'm questioning how much needed to be expanded upon to make this a mini series. First of all, that's not
how many episodes do we know?
I want to say 4, maybe 4, 1 for each season, but that's maybe fine. 6.
Hour each?
I got to look this up now. 8.
Oh my, 2 episodes per season. Maybe we get 2 years.
Seems a little ambitious, for lack of a better phrase.
I'm down.
It might lean a little bit heavy into the, say, slapstick, but I don't know. I'm not convinced. It seems like maybe it's too little to cover over 8 episodes, but I could be wrong. I think everybody involved knows what they're doing. But anyway, I guess ultimately the point is you asked the question, who is this for? Short story long, I don't know who the fuck this is for anymore. I would not have even thought to watch it again if it weren't for you making some kind of offhand comment about it and me going, oh, I remember that movie. Holy shit. Was that as like awful and sensitive and earnest as I remember it? And yes, it is. But despite that, personally, I was a bit charmed by it, but you had the opposite reaction. So I don't know.
No, there are charms to be had there, but overall, it's just as a curiosity, I can appreciate. I can recommend it as a curiosity. I don't know that I would recommend it as anything but, because there is no story going on here. It's just a bunch of middle-aged white people examining their lives. Good for you guys.
But as we already said, there weren't a lot of pictures or movies, certainly not TV shows, that went into that area or examined the lives of these people. Let's put aside the fact that, yeah, these are white people, affluent white people from New York.
There weren't a lot of snuff films that were popular at this time either, but
Why do you have to go there? Why do you have to go there? I applaud his effort, Alan Alda's efforts to get this made. Look, he wrote it, he directed it, and he started it. That's pretty cool.
Look, man, I can appreciate what you appreciate about this movie, but I don't know that I could tell anyone else to go watch this movie thinking they would have that same experience. I don't know that anyone else there is looking for the Alan Alda earnestness, fucking extravaganza that is the Four Seasons. If that is your jam, well, then jump on in. The Alda is fine.
I think if you go into this thinking to yourself, oh, this is going to be so bad, it's good, I'm going to laugh at all these silly motherfuckers, you probably will get out of it exactly what you put into it in that sense. And there's a lot to laugh at here. This is dated. The fashions are dated. The attitudes are dated. The music is dated. The cinematography is dated.
Force frivolity.
Yeah, but I don't know. There's, like I said, there's an earnestness to the proceedings that kind of kept it for me from shading all the way into outright camp. This isn't like The Room with Tommy Wiseau, where he was like an alien who didn't understand basic human emotion or how to make a watchable movie. This is somebody who had a handle on the technical aspects of movie making and wrote a good for its time script. It has some interesting things to say about relationships and life and love during that period, and maybe even applicable somewhat to modern audiences. We'll see with the Netflix series. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to recommend everyone watch the Netflix series and see this if you have nothing to do and it's a Sunday.
Very narrow recommendation.
That's the only way I could recommend the movie is if you have nothing to do and it happens to be Sunday. Well, all right, that's going to wrap this one up. This is just a one-off. I don't know, we're going to be doing this one again. HB, where people can find you? Where can people find you if they're looking for you?
Well, when I'm not thinking about my own mortality, you can find me elsewhere on the Weirding Way Network. I co-host the Night Mr. Walters Taxi Podcast alongside my erstwhile co-host, Father Malone, over here. I host the Noise Junkies Music Podcast. That's been fun to do. Check that out if you like music. I'm an occasional guest on the Culture Cast with Chris Dashu. And I also have a Bandcamp site. It's hmusicplace.bandcamp.com. That's it. That's where you can find me. How about you, Father Malone?
I go to patreon.com/Father Malone. Episodes early and commercial free, and other series like Cable Box Theater that HB and I do. As for everything else, I don't know. Just Weirding Way Media. That's where all the stuff is, I guess. Just say something earnest here at the end, something pithy. I don't know, I'll just drop something in. Basically anything from Alan Alda.
This isn't a war. It's a murder. This isn't a war. It's a murder.
Have you ever wanted to dive deeper into the horror movies you love? Beyond the Blood is a horror podcast for fans who want more than just surface-level screams. We do deep dives into the movies that shaped us, digging into director commentaries, behind-the-scenes stories, deleted scenes, and the special features that most people skip. Each episode is a love letter to the genre. We break down how these films were made, the creative risks that paid off or didn't, and the lasting impact they've had on the genre as a whole. From 70s slashers to modern nightmares, we celebrate the craft, chaos, and characters that keep us coming back. If you're the kind of fan who rewatches movies with the commentary on, or you simply grew up in the video store horror aisle, the Beyond the Blood podcast was made for you. New episodes every single week. Subscribe, and let's dig deep. Welcome to the Beyond the Blood podcast.